Welcome, everyone. My name is Josh Human. I'm the curator of education and public programs at the Power Plant Contemporary Art Gallery. On behalf of my colleagues at the Power Plant, including Director Gaetan Verna, who is somewhere in the crowd, I can't see, our board chair, John Matheson, and all my colleagues, I thank you for joining us at this screening of Political Advertisement 9, 1952 to 2016 by Anthony Muntadas and Marshall Reese. We also extend thanks to the staff and board of Hot Docs for their partnership. The program is possible due to a grant from the U.S. Embassy in Ottawa, with thanks to the Honorable Bruce A. Hayman, Ambassador of the United States of America, and representatives who are joining us today, Claudia and Hillary. So thank you so much for your support. And please, let's give them all a round of applause. So of course, as we know, we have just over 48 hours until Americans who have not already taken advantage of early voting go to the polls to vote for the next president of the United States. To me, this campaign has felt longer and more intense than any other during my lifetime. But in Political Advertisement by Muntadas and Reese, we will see some of the same intensity in the stream of media from the 1952 campaign of Dwight D. Eisenhower versus Adlai Stevenson to today's vociferous campaign between Hillary Clinton and Donald Trump. This is the 9th version of Political Advertisement, one every 4 years, on which Muntadas and Reese have collaborated. Muntadas was born in Barcelona, but since 1971 has lived in New York, and his work addresses social, political, and communications issues, the relationship between public and private space within, I seem to be missing a page. There we go. Within social frameworks, as well as channels of information and the ways they may be used to censor central information or promulgate ideas. Marshall Reese is a Brooklyn-based artist working in various media, including video, information networks, custom hardware and software, editions, and temporary public art events. Since the 1980s, he has collaborated with Nora Ligorano as Ligorano Reese. So after today's screening, Muntadas and Reese will take the stage with moderator Jeffrey Dvorkin, a lecturer and director of the journalism program at University of Toronto Scarborough campus. He's on the boards of the Canadian Journalism Foundation and the Canadian Journalism Forum on Violence and Trauma, and he's a frequent commentator in print and broadcasting. So at this stage, I'll invite the two artists, Muntadas and Marshall Reese, up for just a few words, and then we'll have our screening. And following the screening, again, we'll have that moderated discussion, welcoming questions from you, the audience.
Thank you, Joshua. Thank you to bring us here. Just brief words to say, that this work started in 1984, and every 4 years we get together, we observe the media, we collect the ads, and we edit. I think the work is about editing. People understand the importance of editing, and I think, always I think the work is made at the editing process. Like that, the different 4 years, when we get together, the big decisions and all the decisions are made on the editing. And I want to emphasize that, because it's a tradition in our practice from the 30s photomontage to the 60s and 50s cinema and video montage, and recycled image could be and could create a work.
Thank you. And so, as Antonio said, we started this project in 1984, and he first showed me the rough cut when I was living in Spain, and I was very excited to see a number of ads that I remember growing up. So my initial response was, as a child of post-war U.S., expansion of prosperity and human and civil rights, was that it was very exciting to see political ideas transmitted through the medium of television as publicity, as television ads. But after doing this now for 32 years, I'm beginning to have my doubts about the efficacy of transmitting political values through the medium of campaign advertising. And I just want to thank you all for coming, and hope that you find it of interest too.
Well, good afternoon, everyone. I'm Jeffrey Dworkin, a journalism program director at the University of Toronto Scarborough. These are our eminent guests and talented producers and editors, and I think we owe them another round of applause. I miss Henry Wallace already after watching all those ads. Just a couple of questions, and then we'll take some questions from the audience. Do you think that over the years, obviously, the art of seduction, political seduction, got more sophisticated, and we can see it in the most recent ads? Do you think that the goal of those ads changed over the years? Were they initially, as I sense, directed towards voters, but latterly, I think they were directed more towards journalists?
Yeah, that's an interesting point. I hadn't really thought about it like that, but I think that a lot of these spots do seem to be talking to people in your field, for example, or producers of such media. And I think that you can see that in the quotations of earlier spots, where I wonder what the effectiveness of them are, considering, like, for example, well, we didn't show that, but there was a spot that Hillary Clinton made that's based on a 1964 spot called Confessions of a Republican. And I don't know what the point of that was necessarily, given that the people that would remember that are, very late in life.
Well, I think it's not different than what happened in advertisement in general. The beginning of advertising, it was information of the products, and people could decide what they want to consume of the information they receive. This way how the advertising changed is about seduction. They don't want to inform. They want just to convince people to buy the product. And this is what happened also with the candidates. I think it happened the same thing with the candidates with the products.
It's interesting, I think, as well, because as the audience for television content ages and eyeballs shift towards social media, will we see these ads in 4 years, the ones that you will be producing, I hope, into a documentary? Will it have more of a social media content and less pure television?
Well, I mean, I think that one of the things that we're already seeing is the durations of the spots are expanding. And I think that that reflects, the distribution, where broadcast television is very expensive, and so that if it's submitted by the internet or through websites, it can be longer in format. That being said, there have been studies made, and most people recall television ads over other forms of expression.
Okay, I would just like to open this up to more questions from the audience. Is there someone with a microphone floating, or? Okay. And there's one upstairs too. I can't quite see you, but I'm sure we'll hear you. Anyone have a question? Here's someone.
I remember the 1980 election campaign, and the Reagan ads that year seemed to be particularly effective and helped shift the vote. The Clinton campaign has run some very effective ads, admittedly against a weak candidate, and it hasn't had an impact whatsoever, it seems. The polls are the same now as they were 2 months ago. Do you think the public is becoming immune to political ads?
Well, I mean, I think people are thinking about how effective these are, and there's always the question of what's an effective message, a negative one or a positive one. I'm not really sure that the polling figures directly reflect the efficacy of this type of media. So I mean, my answer to your question is I'm not sure that judging by the poll figures that that's effective. I mean, I think that I mean, if we talk about what this piece is about, is, in my mind, and how Antonio and I approach it, is really how new technologies are affecting society, in this case, political expression, beginning with radio, broadcast television, and as we're going further forward, social media. But if you really think about this election, I think one of the greatest impacts is a new form of expression that we come upon, and that's email. It's not directly in the ads, but it's certainly become a huge issue in the campaign, as is social mores.
I think my interest on that work is the construction of the media of all the political candidates. I think in the way how every advertisement is a kind of portrait simulacrum of each candidate. I think in a way, they all 32 years they've been working, we could see the crescendo of new strategies, new methods, new systems. Then it goes from, in a way, in the beginning, to just to have a kind of information of the candidates. Now it's just pure like a kind of disqualification, negative. Nobody speak about their own program. And I think it's really very critical about that, because I think it becomes, you don't know who the person is. It's basically a construction.
Will the ads in the future be more targeted to a younger, more ironic sensibility? This is aimed very much at this TV core of older viewers. Do you anticipate a different tone to political ads in the future?
Well, I think it's been through the years a kind of all kind of spectrum, ironical, serious, and you know, as I say, negative. And I think the Marco Rubio boots, in a way, I think it's a kind of counterpart, I think, with other previous, the guy that he was the actor for Aspirin, that is about Humphrey and Nixon. What he do Nixon. I mean, this is appear in every of the elections, some ironical. But definitely I think with the social networks, internet, I think all this is changing. I think it's changing.
And I would just like to add that I think that, you know, I'm not necessarily sure that a certain style targets a certain demographic. And also to say that, you know, the metrics are very, very advanced now, but Bloomberg in particular advanced that in his mayoral campaigns.
We have time for another question. Sir.
Thank you. I think when we're watching these ads, it's easy for us in 2016 to watch ads from past decades and sort of laugh at the tactics and the methods they used. But I also found us laughing at ads that are pretty contemporary. And I don't know how much you've engaged with audiences from other places geographically. It might be that we have a Canadian perspective and our filter finds the tactics laughable, but or I would say most of the so-called serious ads from the last 10 years, I'm finding that we're laughing at them. I just want to know if from your experience, if they're landing on Americans and being taken seriously, or if they're also laughing at them.
Well, in a way, they also are, they are distributed in different places. I think not everything is distributed in the same place. Some things in Ohio, some things is in Colorado. I think it's a kind of marketing. All story also is about a chain of the advisors for every candidate, the publicity agencies, the political advisors, finally the editors and the art directors, they make the film. Like that, everything is in a way very much thought and marketing in a way to go directed to a very specific state. Like that, I think is in a way, I will say, not everybody see everything.
But, and to talk about our experience with showing it at the various venues, you know, people, I was I think that this audience was a little more joyous, you know, at some of the spots, but
Hip, I think hip is the appropriate.
oh, yeah, sorry, you're a very hip audience in Toronto, in this neighborhood. But I also think that, you know, you know, it varies from audience to audience. In Washington, D.C., we had an audience that really appreciated it, but we learned that a lot of those people that came to the screenings were also people who worked in it, and they could really relate to the issues and the people that it was representing.
Another question? Any others?
Thank you. I noticed a trend, a disturbing trend. In hindsight, being 2020, a lot of the time there's like a precedent that the one who became president wasn't the best fit, and usually the best candidate. Once again, hindsight, never even made it. We can see that with Bernie Sanders. You think that's grass is always greener on the other side, or do they just have a trend for picking the worst possible person to lead their country?
I don't think I can really answer that because it's a personal opinion. We can talk later about that.
Thank you both very much. It was really very interesting. We'll look forward to seeing you back here in 4 years. Okay, thank you. Thank you all very much. My pleasure.